Hey, TigerNet fans and Clemson fans, this is David Hood and Grayson Mann with the Orange Crush podcast. It's a little chilly outside this morning, and of course, when the leaves start to turn and the weather gets a little bit of a nip in the air, sure, that's football season, but that also means basketball season is on the way, and we are thrilled today to have Shawn Poppie, head coach of the women's basketball team at Clemson. He's going to start his first year here in a couple of weeks on the podcast. Shawn, welcome to Clemson. I know you've been here for a while. Welcome to Clemson. Welcome to the podcast. What has your first months in Clemson been like besides crazy?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks so much for having me. I say us because it's obviously as the leader, I get a lot of asks for this, but it's all of us here inside our program. We're all brand new. We're excited. The last 6 months. Some of it feels like 6 minutes, some of it like 6 years. You know, it's been a whirlwind for sure. But you think about the roster we had to put together in a short time. You jump right into recruiting for the 25 and really 26 and 27 classes to try to really put the foundation to what we're trying to build here moving forward, all while trying to be active in the community, right? I think that part of our responsibility is not only to put a brand on the court that we're all proud of and we're competing at a high level, but also to give back, right, and share who we are, our time, whatever it may be, to get fans in the stands. I don't think it's a secret. We've not had great support, and it's a two-way street, right? It's not only the product we put on the floor, who we have representing our university, but also being relational, right, and doing our part of giving back. So it's been a long and short 6 months all at the same time. You know, we're here 10, 12 days away from tipping off in Little John, and I need that to be another what feels like 6 years, right? We need some time, but I am excited to get out there and let this group show who they are.
And you talked about putting fans in the stands. The thing that I think the general consensus is, ever since you had that introductory press conferences, we cannot wait for November. And seeing that, I think you guys hosted a watch party for Clemson Wake Forest, if I'm not mistaken, in Charleston, had over 500 attendees. Just how do you feel like this community has embraced you, Shawn? I'm talking to Faxon or Austin, who are pretty close to the program. They say that fans are ready. They cannot wait for that opener against Jackson State. Just how have you felt this community embrace you, and how excited do you feel like this basketball, just everything is heightened? There's an Elite Eight men's team. It's a new era in women's basketball. How excited do you feel like fans are for that opener?
Well, I mean, it was part of why I took this job, right? The Clemson fan base, Clemson family is a real thing. They come out thick, right, and love to support their Tigers. But I also think that's a work in progress, no different than our team's going to be, right? I can't expect a sellout on November 4th, right? It's going to take efforts over and over and over again to make sure we continue to get out in the community. That watch party in Charleston a couple weeks ago was phenomenal. And, you know, I've not said no to any of the appearances. Obviously, it'll be some no's coming up just because our schedule won't allow. But we want to continue to share our story, right, and make sure our fan base gets to know our team, because I do think not only are they unbelievable kids and representation on the court, but you put those things together, right? And I think they're relatable to the Clemson family. And so I'm very excited. You feel the excitement around our program, and it started when we got the job back in late March, early April. But again, it's not an end product, right? Not only what you're going to see November 4th is not the end product. The same thing with the support. Do I think we will have more than we've had before? Absolutely. Just from, again, the responses we've gotten. I think we've now sold more season tickets before our even first game that's in history of us recording season tickets. That sounds great, right? But we're nowhere near where it needs to be. And so that's okay, right? It's going to take time. But I think we keep this thing one day at a time and do it the right way. Again, we're excited for that first step for the Clemson fan base and family to see us November 4th.
Shawn, women's basketball fascinates me right now because we have had women's teams in college basketball that were really good. Whether you look at what Gino Rem has done at UConn, what Coach Summit did at Tennessee, Sue Bird, people like that came along and revolutionized the sport. But yet it to me almost took that rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese to bump it up another notch, and now it has exploded.
Yeah.
How do you take advantage of all of this newfound interest in the sport?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that's some of the reason I'm here. I really believe that, right? Like now's the time to invest in women's sports. And, I think that it's been a mixture of things. I think you're exactly right. We've had some pioneers in this sport, but no different than what Clemson did with football a number of years ago when Dabo got here. We invested, right? Like it takes an investment, right, to get a product. And I think it started at a young age for kids, and the game is at an all-time high because of the investment at a young age, and kids have gotten better. But also we've started to invest in women's sports at this level. And you do that over and over again, you're going to see a product that's exciting to watch. It did take the whole Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese rivalry to kind of open it back up. Absolutely. That was like, both sides. And now that we're here, I think the other piece of it is, and like men's basketball and women's basketball, like that's been our rivalry internal, right? Like, okay, what I mean by rivalry is like for attention. And
Right.
I think for the first time now in 2024, we can accept it as being its own entity, right? Like we don't have to compare ourselves to what men's basketball is doing. We can be our own entity, and it's going to be different, right? You're not going to come see a ton of dunks, if any, right? But what you are going to see is a group of young women playing at a very, very high level at a fast pace. And it's a sport, in my opinion, with basketball, it's at its truest form. And so while that excitement's there, I think we got to capitalize with a product on the court, but continue to share that story. I think part of those is not only were they good basketball players, it's the story and relatability to so many young kids, right? Like there's a lot of little girls that look up and say, wow, I could be Caitlin Clark, right? Like, and then on the flip side, there's a lot of young girls that look and like, wow, I look and can be like Angel Reese. And, I think there's a lot of stories like that is what we got to continue to share, and then how to use your platform to grow to not only as them as basketball players, but what they've done for everything else, right? All the brand deals and connections that they've made and had, they've capitalized, and we're trying to teach our young people to do the same. It's part of why we get out and we don't tell anybody no, right? I want to continue to share that because we got plenty of those same stories, inside our own program.
I found it fascinating I think I learned the day of your introductory press conference, like hours later, you had somebody already lined up for a visit that was from the portal. And I'm thinking, wow, that's someone who understands how to work the belly of the beast. But I think when it's unique that you're new to this area, you're new to sort of what Clemson's all about, and you're trying to build a new program in your vision. Just sort of what were the quick criteria that you had to use to build this roster? Because you guys have been busy in the portal all offseason building a team that's going to be this new era for Coach Poppie. But what were sort of maybe your factors, criteria that you're looking for in a staff and for players to say, hey, this is going to be how we're going to build Clemson women's basketball moving forward?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate enough that the staff part kind of took care of itself early on. Like I had a phenomenal staff at Chattanooga. Again, I had been at this level at Virginia Tech, so I know what it looks like. And I think early on when you first, kind of get a nod that you're going to get this job, a lot of outside voices are like, you got to go to get experience for Power 4. Got to get a bunch of people that have been there. And I've been here. I know what it looks like. I know what it takes. And I knew I had a staff that could do the same thing here, right? It just and so that instantly allowed me. I know they're all coming with me. So in my press conference, we can start to line up visits because it wasn't just me here by myself, right? I had my core crew that was with me at Chattanooga already en route. And but then I also know I had to go fill holes to help their inexperiences. All right, we go get Chris Ayers, right? That fits some experience level that can help boost my current group, right? All while they get to teach him some things of just how we do things and the important values inside our program. And so Sydney then kind of was the last piece to that puzzle. But again, back to that, it allowed us to hit the ground running because we had no time to wait. The portal's like it's speed dating, right? You don't have time to, oh, well, what about this compared to that? Like they're making decisions. And that's kind of, back to what you mentioned, like, yeah, I had a press conference at noon. At 2:00, our first visit came on campus because she's getting ready to make a decision that week. And so I have no time to waste. With that said, we I think it was the hardest thing for me because I'm a puzzle piece guy. I don't like to just say, okay, we need a forward, we need a center. Like, how did this stuff mesh together? And there was not a starting point because we had 2 returning, right? It wasn't like, here's a couple puzzle pieces. What are you doing to put around it? We did not have a starting point guard. We didn't have a starting center. So how was this going to mesh together? But I felt like early on we got some pieces that could mesh with a little bit of everything, right? I think our first commit since coming outside of our Chattanooga crew that we kind of knew who was coming in that group was some Evans, who could be a little stretch 4, potentially a big wing, but a 3 and D. She fit us. And again, with the idea of we had to go get a starting point guard, right? That we knew could hand the keys over, and then that turned into Loyal McQueen. And so they started to piece themselves together. And it's no different than how we're going to build it, moving forward. It's not what's your prototype? Well, I don't know. What's my roster look like? Because I want certain skill sets and size to help pull off each other's strengths. No different than I just mentioned in my staff. Like, do we have weaknesses on this team? Absolutely. But you're trying to get other people's strengths to erase what them weaknesses are. So it's hit the ground running, right? And we're going to do it all over again, right? Like the roster we built, it's a lot of one and done people, right? And not by choice. They have no choice. They're here 1 year, and so it's an exciting time. But we also know that this thing is these bags under my eyes are going to stay for quite a while.
You said something really interesting there earlier when you said that women's basketball is kind of basketball in its purest form. I love being able to turn on the TV at night and see Yale, right? Because they know that they're not as athletic as teams they play. And you kind of see that, too high post or whatever you want to call that offense. And it's gorgeous to watch the back doors come. And I'm with you on that purest form of basketball. So now, Clemson fans that come out, what will they see out of a Shawn Poppie offense? What will they see out of a Shawn Poppie defense?
Yeah, really good. Because we're very similar, like you just mentioned, we don't have a roll the ball out there and let one person just dominate it, right?
Right.
I think that what you're going to see is a lot of sharing the basketball, scoring by committee, moving the basketball around, fun style, right? Like we want assist basketball playing with a lot of threes. And I think that at a pace that we're trying to still figure out, to be honest, David, like we don't have the depth nor the firepower to go try to run up and down the floor with South Carolina possession for possession. Okay.
Right.
We have to have a balance of that, right? Like the opportunity to score in transition gives Loyal McQueen and Mia Moore. It's hard to scout transition, but you also got to be real with yourselves of what does that pace look like to give you the best chance to win. And so I think that balance is still something we're trying to figure out. And I think we'll figure that out as the year goes on. But once we get settled, it's not everyone come and watch one player, right? And some programs, and maybe eventually we do have something like that. But right now it's by committee, which is a lot of fun, right? It is basketball at its purest form, where we're trying to take care of the basketball and mixing in some back cuts with some flares and allowing our skill set to shine through, because we're going to try to have to out-skill people, not out-athlete or outsize, because if you look at our roster, we're not doing either of those with this roster. And so on the defensive side, again, I talk about this all the time. Hopefully when you come watch us play, you can see Clemson women's basketball culture for how we defend, right? It's going to be tough. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be disciplined, and it's going to be together, right? It's not something where we're going to get out and gamble and press you and try to deny and get steals. To be honest, we'll probably be bottom 3 or 4 in turnovers forced. But what we have to be is towards the top 5 in field goal percentage defense, right? Because we're trying to force contested jump shots, more of a pack line style. And then we got to be really good at rebounding. And although we're not a great size, there's a toughness that comes with that. And to team rebound, it's going to take all of us. But that culture we're trying to establish in our program should show mostly on the defensive side, but then it'll flip to the offense where we're doing this thing together. We're sacrificing for one another, making the unselfish play. As long as Clemson has more points than the other team, we're all happy.
I think what's fascinating, if we could rewind a bit, Shawn, is talking about how you got this Clemson job. and just sort of the conversations that you had with Graham Neff. And I think, remember you and I talking about this over the summer, was just how quickly things sort of felt like they were meshing together within that conversation that you had with him. Just could you maybe refresh fans on how you got here and sort of what were those conversations that took place? And once you knew, hey, this is going to be my home.
Yeah, it did happen fast. Again, I was at Chattanooga. We were 28-4, just won our second consecutive Southern Conference tournament. And then my agent calls and says, hey, Clemson wants to talk. And I said, well, I'm willing to talk. It's obviously we're getting ready to hear. If you think back, like our tournament, you still got a whole nother week before selection Sunday. And so, I'm willing to talk, but obviously my focus right now is to go to NCAA tournament, but I'd be really, really not very smart to not answer the phone call with Graham Neff, because Clemson's a place that I've always looked from the outside in like, wow, again, with so many years here in the upstate, I've watched this program from afar, but not very far, right on the outskirts, and had a lot of admiration for how Clemson University and its athletic department had been run. And so that phone call was supposed to be very, very just brief, right? Get to know one another. Some change had been made. I think we were scheduled for a 15 or 20-minute phone call. And an hour later, I thought, oh my goodness, like this went pretty well, and timing of all that, though, is also, again, Virginia Tech's getting ready to potentially have a change too with Kenny Brooks. And again, my history, I had been up there with him. We had started that program in 2016, I guess it was. And so like there's a lot of rumblings going on all while I'm trying to win at Chattanooga. And but again, that phone call comes and it was phenomenal. I went and talked to my wife and said, hey, I know we don't have any plans on moving, right? We just built a house. We got 3 kids. We could build something special. We love Chattanooga. I said, but, right, one of the places that I think that would be very easy to convince you to potentially move to has called, right? And very shortly after, I think we had planned on really waiting to after the NCAA tournament, but with the Virginia Tech and some other movement was going on, those plans changed, right? And Graham and Stephanie and Kevin and the whole crew changed those plans. We moved it a little bit quicker, right? Was fly down and kind of see where we're at. At that point, though, I'm putting my whole thing together because, like, hey, Clemson's something I want to prove that I am deserving of this job. And what I learned very, very quickly sitting there with Graham and the crew was the other way around. This felt like a recruitment of me and why I would be a great fit. And I do think that Clemson mirrors a lot of it. If you look at where I've been and how we've done it, and the timing of Clemson, women's basketball was perfect. Again, the time we built Virginia Tech, it was no different than what you see right now. Kind of the core values of what Virginia Tech stood for is very similar to here at Clemson. And so all that stuff started to kind of formulate. We did wait till after the NCAA tournament to have more of that, okay, this is your job type talk. And then a week later, here I am, right? Because once that offer got pushed across the table, I do feel like this place is a sleeping giant. There's no doubt we can get it going here with the resources, the people, not only academically, but in the athletic department. And so it was a no-brainer when it got to that point.
Now, there is a school in the state of South Carolina that has proven you can win in women's basketball. There's that absolute monster down in the Midlands. I go back to the early days of Dabo Swinney in football, and he said, I can't chase Steve Spurrier in South Carolina. I can't chase Florida State. I have to chase winning my league. If I win my league, the rest of it will start taking care of itself. Do you have to have that kind of same approach in building this?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think you cheat yourselves when you start to compare it to, I mean, obviously you're talking about South Carolina right up the road.
Right.
We got to be the best version of Clemson. If we do it that way, we're going to reach the goals of competing with those programs, right? And it takes your own process, and I think it can distract you from. And I think we also got to be real. Like it's not we can't catch them tomorrow, right? Like it took Dawn 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, to win 20 games. Like it takes some time, right? It takes some time. You look at the early years, like it takes a little while, and you got to stick with the process and try to do it your way, and evolve along that way, right? Like everything that my plan and blueprint, there's going to be changes made, but now we have a plan in place, and how do we get to where we're in that conversation? And that is the end all, right? To be up at that upper echelon, but one day at a time, right? And then if we do it that way, there's no doubt we can catch the South Carolinas and the people that have traditionally been very good in the ACC. You hear it a lot, obviously here, right? But with that said, I took the job knowing that, right? We're not scared to talk about it and hear the comparisons because it's right there. We know what it is. We know the rivalry. I know the success she's had, and I respect it, right? Obviously, that's an unbelievable job of what they've done, but I also got to look backwards and look what it took for them to get to there. And so I'm excited about who we are at Clemson and what we can build at Clemson, because I do think that we can put ourselves in that conversation of all the living rooms of women's basketball in the NCAA, who is at that level. I think we can get there at some point for sure.
I think what was fascinating was someone was asking at your press conference, I think, sort of what should it look like? What is your expectation for year one? And I'm not exactly getting probably the quote right, but you said you'll know it. You'll know it when you see it, essentially. Just sort of what does that mean for you with year one, sort of as you temper expectations? Maybe it's not a number that you're chasing, but maybe it's just sort of how the product you want to see how it looks. Just sort of what does year one look like in terms of expectations for this group, and how should fans maybe walking into Little John with a lot of excitement for this program, what should they expect for year one under Coach Poppie?
Yeah, I'm staying true to everything we mentioned on that. It should have a feel to when you walk in a gym of, wow, it's different. And that's happening in the current state. I invite anyone, come watch us practice, come be around. And the common theme you get is people walk out like, wow, that's different here. And with that said, it's my job, while it feels different, then to help us grow as a basketball team. And I would say that probably my biggest strength is we're never good enough, but my biggest weakness is we're never good enough, right? So my wife always says, can we be positive, right? There's a positive energy, but we can't get complacent. We got to keep growing. And it's where I go, we're not going to be our best November 4th. We're not supposed to be, right? And we got to find a way to win games. Again, early, I don't know what that's going to look like. We're still trying to figure that out. I do think we have a roster that if things go well, you stay healthy and we continue to grow, we can get our name called on Selection Sunday. I honestly believe that. And we're in a league that's going to give you enough opportunities to give you that chance. I mean, with obviously now going to P4, right, with 4 major conferences, I mean, they're predicting 10 to 11 teams coming out of this league, right? Like, I mean, that's going to give you an opportunity night in and night out. And doesn't mean you got to go undefeated, right? Like, and you look at our non-conference, we got enough. Obviously, South Carolina comes here. You look at Florida, they come here. We have a potential to play Alabama in a neutral site game. Like, we're going to have a strong enough non-conference mixed with the way this league is to get opportunity. Now we got to take care of our job and win enough games, but we're one day at a time. That is a goal, and I think it is very, very attainable. What is that number? I don't know, but my hopes are when you come watch this team play starting on November 4th, you're like, wow, that is different than it's been here. And whatever that looks like, yes, it's going to be a different style. That's not really what I'm talking about, but the energy we have, the connectivity we have, it is just a little bit different. And when that thing continues to grow and we help make them better basketball players, the rest will take care of itself.
Coach, we understand that your time is valuable. We know you have to go, but yeah, starting here, Jackson State, November the 4th, team that made the NCAA tournament, lost to UConn. I think they won 26 games. Then you got a game against Presbyterian that's going to be early in the season. That's going to be a lot of people there. How excited are you to kind of get this rolling?
I am, like I joked at the beginning of this, like we need more time. That's coach talk, right? Like there's going to be nerves, right? Shoot, myself included, because boy, it's you pinch yourself a lot of days when you get to walk out the tunnel of Little John, right? And wear the paw across your chest. And you want it so bad for these girls. You want it so bad for this university and this program. And, there's an excitement and there's going to be some nerves, and we got to turn that in early on because it could get a little sloppy and ugly at times. And that's why we just got to be 1 point better, right? Every game. I don't care who we play. But there is an excitement to get out there and represent and kind of show what we've been working on and who we are. But it is, right? You think about the first couple. I mean, there's 2 out of those 3, although they're mid-major, they both were 2 of those 3 were in the NCAA tournament a year ago. And I know what that looks like at a mid-major level, and they've circled this as, oh wait, Clemson, we get an opportunity to play them, and they've been down. Like, this is our Super Bowl, right? I get that. I've been on the other side of this. And we got to treat like every one of those games are Super Bowl for us too, right? As we're trying to prove something, as we, again, you can early for us Super Bowl circle November 20th as South Carolina comes to town on ESPN, and like we skip the first 3. Like we ain't got time, and we're not good enough to skip the first 3, right? Jackson State is our Super Bowl, right? And let's go take care of our Super Bowl before we turn it to the Presbyterians and the NC Centrals before. So. But we're excited. We can't wait to get out there, and there's going to be nerves from the group I have, but including myself.
Shawn, this has been fantastic. Just wanted to give you a chance to say any maybe final messages to our Clemson listeners and our audience. Just any final words before we wrap up?
Come and see us, right? Come and see us. It's been my pitch for a couple weeks, and I probably was a little wrong on my little social media tweet, right, of like a fan pack of 4, $150. I think I put something like that's 2 McDonald's trips for my family of 5. Maybe it's 3.5. Okay. Like maybe I exaggerated a little bit, but the reality is $150 for a seat for 4 season tickets is pretty remarkable. And, my hopes are we're working on, obviously we got to get some compliance stuff going, but is that what you don't use, we can donate and give back to the community some sort of way. I'm working on that. We are working on that. I don't know, if we're going to be able to do compliance sake, right? There's a lot that goes into that, but because I know a lot of it is, well, I can't come to 17 games. I truly get that piece too, right? But for $150, 4 season tickets, we need people to come in the stand and support not only our current team, but that is the future, right? People want, you look at recruiting, that's a commonly asked question. What's the support like? Well, there's no better way to show our support than, hey, just tune into a game and look how many people are coming to watch us play. And, we got to do our part, no doubt. All right. And that's what we're working on, but come and see us. All right. Come be a part of it. We look forward to hosting, but also being a good host while you're here. So appreciate y'all having me on and super excited to get things going. Again, anytime I can get on this, please give me a call. Love to share.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. This is the Orange Crush podcast. Thanks to Herb Tyler, Chick-fil-A of Clemson and Seneca, Lisa Nason Accounting in Greenville, for being our title sponsors. Thanks to Clemson women's basketball head coach Shawn Poppie for this. Grayson, great job. Hope everybody enjoys this podcast. And I encourage everybody, $150, buy some season tickets, go support this team, please.
Support it indeed. And also, guys, thank you for all the support on the podcast. We want to thank Coach Poppie for taking the time today. Guys, stay tuned. The week is ramping up. We got men's basketball Monday and Louisville preview next week. Guys, take care and have a great day.